Welcome to The Detail. I am your host, Kathy Antunes, and you are listening to The Detail on WSLR 96.5 LPFM in Sarasota, Florida, and WBPV 100.1 LPFM in Bradenton, Florida. Well, the City of Sarasota on September 19th, the City Commission took a vote that was one step more toward putting a momentous change in our land use in the city in place. With me today is Rob Grant. Rob, you live in Arlington Park. You are a neighborhood activist. You ran for city commission. You've been following this issue closely. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me. Thank you.
Yeah,
Happy to be here.
and I so appreciate you and I are gonna go back and forth and talk about this. So, I could call this show, How Does Affordable Housing Die in Sarasota? This is where the rubber meets the road. And just like the 2050 plan in 2014 was dismantled, and a lot of people in the rural areas may not have been, and some really just weren't aware. This is a huge time for the community to understand what's happening.
Right.
Because what the city commission has looked to do is increase density, which is fair in a city to have higher, and when I say it's dwellings per acre, so we're talking about condo buildings or apartment buildings. Typically it could be townhomes, but this is often a way to increase housing supply, to use land efficiently. But there's a huge problem with affordable housing. And I want to talk up front, Rob, with you. And we're going to get to some video of input from members of the community and the lobbying community, the business community, that gave input at this hearing. But people can't afford to live. People who work in Sarasota have a hard time, many of them, affording living here. So let's start. Yeah, I want to start with because AMI is an acronym that's going to be referenced during our show and during the public input that I am going to be playing for everyone listening, so you can hear what some community leaders have to say about this. But Rob, let's take a look at this graphic right now. Percent AMI. So AMI stands for area median income. And then what is an affordable rent for those folks? And as you can see here, a lot of times, so AMI is the average median income at 60% is $51,000, nearly $52,000. So at the lowest end of what they're looking at for affordable housing, we're talking about an income limit. So it's $52,000 and under, and that's 60%, right, of AMI. What the commission is talking about is 120% mainly, right?
That's right. That's correct.
Yeah. So we're talking about in terms of attainable, they're calling it attainable usually, but the community understands it as affordable housing. We're talking about housing at 120% AMI. That's what the commission's focused on. These are people who earn over $100,000.
That's right.
So this is a family. Maybe it's a couple and each partner contributes, but it's over $100,000. And, my first issue here is I don't think most people consider that the target group for affordable housing.
No, I mean, I am one of these people that they're supposedly targeting. When I look at the income limits that they show here, 60% is where I as an individual land. And and
And
the
you work
majority of the
you work for Black Coast Theater Troupe?
I
Is
work
that Black
I work for the West Coast Black Theater Troupe.
West Coast Black Theater
They did
Troupe?
very
Yeah.
well there. I do have some other income where I work, but the majority. I mean, look, the majority of the folks that work at the West Coast Black Theater Troupe, they don't trust me. They don't hit that 120% level.
Hmm.
The majority of those folks are at the 60% level and below, and that is the standard in this town. For probably most organizations.
Yeah, and let's say, if we're going to be an effective arts community and we don't have
Right.
places for people who work in the arts, so let's face it, most people aren't getting rich working in the arts, right?
That's right. That's correct. I
So,
mean,
yeah.
and
And so,
on the reverse side of that, what I can say is looking at the maximum monthly rent for that, just anecdotally, just talking to people that I
and
work with.
let's tell people what that is, because we're putting this up
Sure.
on YouTube,
Oh,
but
I'm sorry. Of
it's
course.
$1,300,
Right.
is the maximum monthly rent. If you're earning 52 grand or below, 1,300 is where it's like
Yeah.
a comfortable rent.
Yeah, that is not a realistic on the ground rent that people are paying today. It's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But would you agree that that's a good target, or are you saying it's not realistic because it's not out there?
I'm saying it's a great target if it could be
Okay.
achieved,
Okay.
but the market, right now, in a year, people have just decided that the value of their properties for rent is dramatically more.
Mm-hmm.
So whether we could see people finding a way to achieve this, it's a challenge.
It
It
is a
definitely is.
challenge. So
Yep.
let me run through these rents.
Mhm.
If you're earning 52 grand or less, the goal rent, for something to be attainable or affordable is $1,300. The maximum mortgage is about 157. Okay, 157, which we all know that's really tough to find. At 80% area median income, that income is $69,000. The maximum monthly rent is about 1,700, and the mortgage would be 231 and change $1,000. 100%. So this is the number, which is the area median income. It's
Mhm.
90,000. The
Mhm.
maximum monthly rent is about 2,300, and the
Mhm.
mortgage 323,000. Now I have to say mortgage rates are going up, right?
Mhm.
So
That's
this is
correct.
something the county put out earlier in 2022. I would expect these mortgages are now lower.
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah. And then the number they're actually using as their litmus test, this is the city, is an income of $103,560.
Mhm.
That, they consider themselves having achieved affordable housing. If those people who make just over 100,000, the maximum monthly rent is $2,589.
Mhm.
And so they've achieved their goal if they do that. And the maximum mortgage is about 380,000.
That's right.
So what you're telling me and what I believe is right off the bat, the definition is skewed.
Well, I also want to point out that they're using area, and this was pointed out at that commission meeting, possibly by a few people, that they're using area median income, which includes all money that someone brings in a year, which
Mm,
includes our retirees and our part-time folks here. So
mhm.
in the end, I mean, in reality, what they should be using, and I'm probably not going to get this right, but it's like area median earnings or something akin to that. But earning income that is actually people who are
Earned
working here,
income,
not
not an
income that's on
annuity.
investment income or
Mhm,
annuity income or
mhm,
retirement income.
mhm.
So if they're really targeting attainable housing for workforce people, first responders, they're using the wrong targets. And I think that speaks a little bit about what, or raises a question of what is the true intent of these proposals.
Yeah, is it gonna be effective? Because people read affordable housing in the newspaper, and I'm thinking of the person who works a $15, $14, $13 an hour job,
Right.
right?
Yep.
That's a
Yep.
lot of people who live
Is.
here who are struggling. That
Mhm.
is not what,
Right.
that's not even close, right?
Right.
To the goals. So, and one more idea before we get to some of the videos we'd like to share and the public input audio. There's going to be reference by some people, particularly the lobbying community, they talk about the free market and real estate. And here's the thing. What is happening with giving density increases? So if you have a piece of land, let's say you can build 25 units per acre. So you could build a condo building that could go up to 25 units because you own 1 acre.
Mm-hmm.
When you increase that, and actually they were considering tripling, they actually quadrupled it instead of tripling it. So when you're going from 25 units an acre to 100 units an acre, what that is, by the vote of the city commission, is a huge wealth transfer.
Mm-hmm.
It is a huge increase in the value of the land and in the value of a project that's developed. That is not the free market hack at work, okay? Our built environment can never be considered a free market entirely because there's always public investment and government zoning and land use designations involved. The value of your property is basically conferred by the government, by what they will allow you to do with it, right? And so this notion, and so the theory behind requiring affordable housing is this: we are giving you, the city commission or any government entity, we are giving you this huge increase in value. We're just giving it to you. You haven't earned this. You didn't do anything to deserve this. You know, this is the land use magic wand that government has is working for you in your favor. Good for you, lucky you. But, and this is really important, they must build in the state of Florida, the idea is this: you're going to have to share some of that wealth.
Mm-hmm.
You are going to have to use some of the units that you get to provide housing that people who work, people who are all around us, setting the table for the prosperity of the community, these people who earn $12, $13, $14, $15 an hour, they need a place to live. So you don't get to just build everything for the rich people or for the people making 120, 130, 140 and above. We're going to require that if you're going to take all this density, some of it has to be affordable. Mm-hmm. And that is not in the state of Florida. And here's the crux of the problem with what they've done. If you confer density, if you confer a land use change, you can never take it back.
That's right.
That's the Burt-Harris Act. Yep. And in the state of Florida, once you confer a land use change, once you give that value to the owner, you can't get it. That state, if they take it back, if a local government takes it back, they must compensate the landowner. So it's really important up front. It's critical that up front, whatever requirements are in there, and it can't just be a squishy promise. That's the problem. This looks like too many squishy promises. It has to be nailed down and buttoned up what's required to get the density. And if you fail to do that, and it appears the city commission is failing to do that, if you fail to put the requirements in place at the beginning, then that landowner can come in and say, but it's not required. And if they win in court, then guess what? You've just given away density and you haven't gotten anything back. You haven't gotten the affordable housing. So that's the crux of the issue. There's lots of details. I want to start. And do you have anything to add?
No, I think that is it. Yeah. No, I mean, Yeah, let's listen to
Okay.
hear what some of these
Because
folks
this is,
said. For
this
sure.
is how the sausage gets made. They want you to think, oh, we're doing it. It's too complicated for you to understand. The devil's in the details here. But let's hear, this is Kathy Kelly Ulrich. She is a planning board member. She is giving public input here to the city commission at the September 19th meeting, talking about what they promised the public in terms of input and what they're delivering. So let's take a listen.
A resident of D3 in the city. I don't live in a high-rise condo. I'm also a member of the planning board. Today, I'm representing the Coalition of City Neighborhood Associations, not the planning board. I'm going to address a lack of opportunity for public comment related to this and the other ordinances. In preparation for this meeting, I reviewed videos of the City Commission meetings of April and January of 2021, meetings that were on the timeline that were shared in the PowerPoint this morning. I think this morning, today anyway. I did that because I find over time, maybe you, maybe even Mr. Brown and staff, sometimes lose track of what we said we wanted in the first place. At the January 19th, 21 meeting, Mayor Brody gave a brief overview of his agenda item by saying, to increase the quality of life for single-family neighborhoods and to have a comprehensive approach to rezoning, unquote. Great interest was expressed by other commissioners. Great concern was expressed to include public input in the process. At 7 hours and 22 minutes into this meeting, Mr. Brown said, quote, "There will be community involvement in all aspects of this. We'll take it back to the community to verify and affirm this is the direction they'd like to go in. There's no way we can do this without the community being involved," unquote. At 7 hours and 25 minutes, Mayor Brody agreed. He said, "I want community involvement in this process. This is where community input is," his emphasis, "the most important guide to future growth of our city for years and years to come." A motion to proceed was approved. There was no public input. On April 19th, 21, staff came back to you with maps and details regarding public input, their plan for public input. I'm sorry this is so small, and I myself can't read it from here, so I'll remove it temporarily. The plan addressed details about meetings would be publicly noticed and open to all the general public. They'd be in locations, Robert L. Taylor, the Shriners, the Waldemere Fire Station, and the Commission Chamber. At 2 hours and 6 minutes into that April meeting, Vice Mayor Arroyo said, quote, "We fully intend on having as much public input as we can. We're in no rush. We'll take our time, even if this takes years," unquote. All the commissioners agreed. At 2 hours and 12 minutes, Mayor Brody added, "I wanted a faster timeline, but this must be right rather than fast." The meeting was closed without public input. Since changes have been made to this and the other ordinances until the 11th hour, the question really is, has the public been given ample opportunity to be educated about these ordinances and provide input? Clearly, the public's saying they have not. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, we still have the opportunity to make this and the other ordinances work for the good of our community, for all of us. Please continue this discussion, and in the words of then Mayor Brody, Consider community input the most important guide to the future growth for our city for years and years to come. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Okay, so
Very
that
interesting,
was,
huh?
yeah, that was Kathy Kelly Ulrich. She is on the Coalition of City Neighborhoods Executive Committee. She is a planning board member, so she makes recommendations to the City Commission all the time. I was really impressed, Rob, with how thoroughly she prepared with time points and direct quotes of the promised public input that would happen.
Yeah.
None of it materialized.
None of it. Not
None
a
of
bit of it.
Yeah. So they were gonna, Robert L. Taylor Center meetings. She listed a bunch of sites.
I believe someone later even indicated that one of the staff members, I think Mr. Smith, suggested that this would not fully come to fruition until 2023. So that was what was suggested, to as a part of these promises to the public input, that there was also plenty of time to do this, which is really important. I mean, we're not even at the end of 2022, and they plan on having this buttoned up on November 7th. So,
which is, there's a lot of factors in play here. One is the pandemic, right? 2021 was a year of the Delta surge. It was the deadliest surge in the country and in Sarasota. That's when we lost the most people. Vaccinations weren't fully on board yet.
right.
And so the notion that this couldn't be, we couldn't take the time to do this in a way, because this is a very smart community with a lot of well-informed people.
Yes.
And there is time to do this the right way.
There sure is.
And so the final vote is scheduled for November 7th, which is the day before the election. But you had pointed something out to me. I served on the Charter Review Committee. The Charter Review Committee, our local charter is our local constitution for the city of Sarasota. And every 10 years, we get together to a committee to review it and make recommendations. So that's number one. But number two is the comprehensive plan, which is what they're looking to change, right?
Right.
That's our local land use constitution.
Right.
And even having served on the committee, this didn't occur to me. I'd like you to share,
Sure.
the dynamic you see happening here.
This is, I mean, it's really interesting context. The sort of the 35,000 foot view of what has happened here in the city in the past couple of years. And as you said, we convened our charter review board this past year. I'm a little tough
It
on
started
time.
August of 2021. Yeah.
Right. So they began this process and made these promises ahead of the charter review committee. But at the time, the charter review committee it takes a little while to form these things. They have to make appointments. So this was all in the works, and you guys convened in August. And as a part of that review, there was some proposals made. And one of the most startling one is that they wanted to do away with the supermajority 4-to-1 vote that is required to pass changes to the comp plan.
Yeah.
And
because
so
what happened on Monday required that 4 commissioners vote to change the comprehensive plan. So these increases in density wouldn't have passed with just 3 votes.
That's correct.
You need 4. And that was a citizen initiated change to the city charter. So to your point, what was being proposed by some people at the Charter Review Commission table was to eliminate the requirement for 4 out of 5 and make it just 3 out of, 3 out of 5.
And I can't speak to who exactly would propose this, but I mean, there were a couple of developer representatives on this board, that in fact, one of them did speak at this commission meeting in favor of these changes. So the point, though, really, I'm getting off base, is that the Charter Review Committee, the timing of them considering whether to do away with the supermajority vote is key, because in the end, the public came out and spoke against that vociferously and fought against even the idea that there should not be a supermajority vote for major land use changes in the city. And the public was successful in squashing that proposal and convincing.
The committee did not recommend eliminating the supermajority vote of 4 out of 5 to make a change to the comprehensive plan.
Right.
The committee
So
said, you know what, we don't want to do that.
Right. And I believe that was a critical moment in the timing of the comp plan changes that were considered at this last September 19th meeting, because I think there was a lot of confidence on the developer and the developer lobbyists, and perhaps some members of city staff, that would go through, that there were enough members on the charter review board to approve that, and that would make it a lot easier to change the comp plan going forward with just a 3-2 vote.
And just to clarify, so what the Charter Review Committee does is they make recommendations. The City Commission ultimately has to approve them, but the voters always have the final say. It's the local constitution, and the voters weigh in. But it appears that there may have been a strategy, or certainly somebody wanted to see the 4 out of 5 requirement to make big land use changes through the comprehensive plan. They wanted that eliminated, and that failed, right?
That's correct.
And the City Commission didn't want to go against what the Charter Review Board recommended.
Correct.
So you're going to have to deal with getting 4 out of 5 votes. And then what you pointed out to me was, then everything started speeding up.
It did.
Because
that was the moment. That was the moment when the timeline changed. And for those in support of these changes, developers, the development lobby, staff, some of them, the deadline immediately became November 7th or 8th, the election day that's coming up. Because, and you know, this timeline became even more critical in August, when the primary election was over for the city commission, and it became very clear that the electorate was choosing a particular path for the city. They chose the candidates that are resident friendly. They chose candidates that listen to the public. They rejected candidates that were supported by developers. And that's not just an accusation. It's proven by the donations that one in particular received.
Yeah,
and
one particular candidate had a PAC that he himself started.
That's correct.
Through his company, which, by the way, candidates are not supposed to coordinate with PACs, period. They're not supposed to do that. And this candidate was Mr. Schofstall, started a PAC through his own company. There wound up being 150 grand in there. And
well, between his campaign and the PAC, he raised $150,000 towards his election.
And how much was in the PAC? It was at least 70, but
yeah, I want to say, I mean, there's some final reports, and then it was well over 70. I mean, you have one individual that donated $30,000.
Yeah, that was companies belonging to Mark Walsh donated quite a bit of money. So, you know, the concern about changing the date to November that a lot of us had, really one of the main things was the dark money that we might start seeing, and it might have more impact in November. And so, you know, having a dedicated election to the city was a way to optimize focus, not have it be all the way down on the ballot. And the dark money was certainly there, you know. So to your point, these meetings got scheduled after the result of the this August just primary. They know that they're not going to have 4 out of 5 votes. It's highly unlikely.
That's right.
Because all 3 candidates are more resident friendly. And so then we saw, wow, they want to get this done before the election.
That's right. I mean, it's I don't know. It's one of the most transparent things that I've seen in our government in 2 years. And Ironically
Not
enough.
too hard to connect the dots. But I'd have to say, if you're not paying, because this requires some close attention, and
It
that's why we're
does.
talking about this.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so let's take a look now.
Mhm.
I am going to play the input of William Russell. William Russell is a developer of affordable housing. He is a member of the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee for the city. And so he's the member of, they require certain members have certain roles in the community. This is a man who provides affordable housing. He has a nonprofit. This is what he does. So let's take a listen now to Mr. Russell and what he has to say about the plan that the city commission approved. All right, let me see now. Here he is.
Good afternoon, commissioners. I certainly applaud any effort in this community to provide affordable housing. I think I've spoken before you enough for you to know that I'm a strong advocate for it. We have a major shortage of it. I like a lot of the aspects of what this is trying to do. And as City Manager Brown pointed out, the AHAC, the previous AHAC, we did recommend, repurposing shopping centers and having flexible densities, especially along these commercial corridors. So I think that's really positive. I want to, my concern, my personal concern, is that this is kind of the last real shot I think the city has to actually accomplish netting meaningful affordable housing development in the city. And I think if we don't get this right, as well intended as it may be, if we don't get this right, I think, we will have really missed our best shot at doing it. So I think, for example, one of my concerns, we had an attorney present to the AHAC the other day with the Florida Housing Coalition. And he said where density bonuses do not generate affordable housing is when the property owners or developers are vested with a sufficient base density that they don't need to go beyond that. And so no one takes advantage of it. So I guess my question, I don't know this, but my question is, in reading through this, if the base density along these commercial corridors is 25, and then nothing affordable happens until they exceed that, my concern is developers are going to develop at 25 units an acre, make a lot of money off of it, and we're not going to see any affordable housing. So that's my concern. I hope I'm wrong about that. That's my concern. And I'm also very encouraged about the discussion or the direction of looking at inclusionary zoning policies. We are discussing that at the AHAC. I just spoke with Palm Beach County planners on Friday about their inclusionary zoning policies. Also found out Jupiter and Delray Beach have adopted those as well. So I think it's positive. I think it's really positive that the City of Sarasota is really kind of rolling up its sleeves and trying to tackle this important issue. But again, I don't want to see really good intentions and a lot of work go forward, and then we're all kind of stunned and disappointed if it doesn't result in much of any affordable housing in the end.
So that was William Russell. When he says AHAC, he's talking about the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. of the City of Sarasota. If you've just joined us, Rob Grant is my guest, and we are talking about the city's plan, or perhaps not. We think not, actually, to create affordable housing. You are listening to The Detail on WSLR 96.5 LPFM in Sarasota, Florida, and WBPV 100.1 LPFM in Bradenton, Florida. Voters must register by Tuesday, October 11th to vote in the November 8th general election, which includes the race for U.S. Senate, Florida governor, state legislature, as well as county and city offices. Early voting begins October 24th and continues through November 6th. All requests for a vote-by-mail ballot must be received no later than 5 p.m. on October 29th to allow ample time for mailing and return. Guidelines for requesting vote-by-mail ballots and registration are available at sarasotavotes.gov and votemanatee.gov. So I don't know, we need to talk too much about Mr. Russell's input, but so here's a man who runs a nonprofit. He creates affordable housing. And I would say the crux of what he's saying to understand is one of the aspects of what the city is doing is just at baseline, just giving 25 units an acre for residential development to plots of land across the city that don't have any right now to do that. And when you give that without a requirement, and that's what he's referring to, that if you go beyond 25, then you have to do affordable housing. A lot of developers are going to take the 25 and run. They're not going to develop affordable housing. They're going to take that baseline increase, and there's no requirement for them to build affordable housing. This is where the rubber meets the road. Don't tell us you're creating affordable housing when there's a loophole you can drive a Mack truck through that transfers wealth but doesn't require, okay, of those 25 units, 8 of them have to be affordable.
Right.
Third, or 6 of them, 25%. We're not seeing that, and that's really concerning.
Well, and I want to point out again, it gets, we have to keep considering the intent of why they're doing this, and is there any indication, these commissioners that voted for this, several of them, at least 3 of them, I would say, they often uphold Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, these sorts of places of what they think we should strive to be. And they seem to just be ignoring a part of what we're supposed to be striving for.
Well, they're ignoring what Palm Beach and Fort Lauderdale have actually done.
That's what I mean. It's part of what has made those places so great, and the reason that they are having a strive to be that. But we will not accomplish that if they continue to grant, this gift to these developers. I mean, we've seen it in the Rosemary District. We have seen efforts in town, and they have failed miserably. Not a single one has been built. And we're talking about, just to be clear, it's, in case some people don't know, like more than 800 properties in the city.
Yeah, this is huge.
10% of the property in the city. So, this was also stated at the meeting by someone. This is a transformational, multi-generational change that we are looking at, and it's being considered somewhat lightly, in my opinion.
Yeah, not the kind of teeth you want to see. So now I'm going to share the input of Christine Robinson. She is the head of the Argus Foundation, and quite honestly is masterful, was at the county in dismantling the 2050 plan and basically dismantling for University Town Center, which was supposed to be walkable and have affordable housing. It was on her watch that it became a standard mall. So let's take a listen to what she has to share.
Ms. Robinson.
Christine Robinson, Executive Director of the Argus Foundation. Commissioners, first I want to thank you. These hearings aren't easy. They're long. It takes a lot out of you. I appreciate your service, each and every one of you. Mr. Brown, Mr. Robinson, thank you both as well for your service to your community. I know that everybody's heart is in the right place in your service. We just may disagree or agree depending on who you are and what you agree on. So thank you, each and every one of you. The term affordable housing somewhat screens what the real issue is. It's really a shortage of housing issue. There's universal agreement on the cause and solution. Page 63 of your staff report, there is a shortage of housing. That's what the sentence starts out. It's a market-driven issue, and so much so that there's been agreement for a while now as to what the issue is and how to solve it. On May 16th, 2022, President Biden issued a statement on housing costs. Today's rising housing costs are years in the making. The mismatch between housing supply and housing demand grew during the pandemic. This shortfall burdens family budgets, drives up inflation, limits economic growth, maintains residential segregation, and exacerbates climate change. Rising housing costs have burdened all incomes, with a particular impact on low and moderate income families and people and communities of color. As his action plan reflects, President Biden believes the best thing we can do is ease the burden of housing costs is to boost the supply of quality housing. One of the most significant issues constraining housing supply, according to his report, and production is the lack of available and affordable housing, which is in large part driven by state and local zoning and land use laws and regulations that limit housing density. That was from President Biden. But lest you think it was just recently. On June 25th, 2019, there was an executive order issued by President Trump. Driving the rise in housing costs is a lack of housing supply to meet demand. The executive order listed a laundry list of regulatory barriers that included overly restrictive zoning and growth management controls, unreasonable maximum density allowances, and cumbersome and time-consuming permitting and review procedures. Quote, these regulatory barriers increase the costs associated with development and as a result drive down the supply of affordable housing. They are the leading factor in the growth of housing prices across metropolitan areas in the United States. Many of the markets with the most severe shortages in affordable housing contend with the most restrictive state and local regulatory barriers to development. And before that, I know several commissioners have referred to our previous President Obama's Housing Development Toolkit, which came out in September of 2016, which had language that mirrored both of these. There are some who are speaking today who oppose the new Ringling Bridge, who said Sarasota would be ruined by the bridge and its height and eyesore. Today, you are incorporating that bridge that has become the symbol of Sarasota into your city seal. Some of those same people and others who moved here more recently opposed Change the Date, which increased voter participation and especially minority participation. Again, there were claims of this ruining elections, and that did not happen. Today, we have the most diverse city commission and administration ever. Today, we are here to address affordable housing, and the same argument with some of those same people are coming here today to argue against these comprehensive plan amendment changes. Sarasota is not a two-lane bridge town, and Sarasota isn't a town that accepts low turnout elections that has low minority voter representation. Sarasota is a vibrant city that needs more housing and density to accommodate our workforce. This is a market issue. You need to meet demand, and your current comprehensive plan does not allow for it. These changes are necessary, just like the bridge and just like changing the city elections. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so.
Wow. Something
Yeah.
else, huh?
Well, the notion that the room is full of people who oppose the bridge, obviously she wants to marginalize anyone that disagrees with her.
That's right. Yep.
And the bridge issue was in like the year 2000 or 1999. So I just don't even buy that there's so many people in the room who oppose that. And even if they did, so what, and then, making the change the date, tying it to being against what she's trying to say is there are people who are against minority turnout, which is also a backhanded, run at anyone who disagrees with her. And actually, the people concerned with changing the date, I was concerned with changing the date because of dark money.
Mhm.
And
And
city
here it is.
elections,
100
being down
some
ballot.
$1,000.
Right, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we totally saw that. So, but thankfully, that candidate didn't prevail. So there is a lobbying community, the Argus Foundation, Gulf Coast Builders Exchange. Bill Merrill was seated next to Christine Robinson. He's a land use attorney. And one of the things about her argument is this is just a supply issue. So if it's basically arguing, just give the density bonus and you're going to have your problem solved. And the whole issue is, no, you won't. There's an influx of wealthy baby boomers who have the money all over the country to come here. We're like number one as a desirable place. Merely increasing supply is not going to solve an affordable housing problem.
No.
That is
I mean,
simply not true.
Yeah, especially if you listen to what staff is telling you about this process right now. And it's that, I mean, we have a crisis now. I mean, and what they're telling us is that, it's going to be several years before they're even able to let someone do this, which means 5 years before something is actually built or longer. So what does this solve for us right now? I mean, or do they have a plan to fast track this part of it too later?
But-
you have to wonder, because they made a promise to include us once. So why should we believe that?
Yeah,
they'll
of course
be
not.
honest?
You can't trust
tell us this
those
in good faith now.
promises.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And the thing is, again, to get to this, just increase the supply. In other words, just increase the density. The reality is just increasing the density is a wealth transfer without guarantees. And the citizens who came forward said, this isn't strong enough to ensure that we're going to get affordable housing. You have not done the homework. You haven't dotted the I's and crossed the T's. You're making affordable housing optional. And the lobbying community is there saying everything's fine. It'll be fine. They always say that. And it never is, in terms of affordable housing. The promises have failed and failed and failed. So
well,
yeah,
sorry.
I want to make sure we get to all this.
I gotcha.
input.
That's right. We're on
So-
time limit here.
No, I know. So let's listen to Ron Collins.
Mhm.
He is just a brilliant guy who studies these issues. He's basically the redistricting expert in Sarasota. He is also with the Coalition of City Neighborhood Associations. So let's hear Ron.
Good afternoon. My name is Aaron Collins. I'm a city resident. I'm here today representing the Coalition of City Neighborhood Associations. We do have a real affordable housing crisis here, and it demands a real solution. We need a solution that guarantees housing that is affordable to a wide range of income levels, and we need a solution that guarantees affordable housing to a variety of family sizes. That's not what's in this ordinance. What's in this ordinance is increased base density and some promises to look at affordable housing details on another day. The increased base density does guarantee more market rate housing will be built if you approve this ordinance. But nothing in this ordinance guarantees any attainable housing will be built. This ordinance also allows some projects to triple the newly increased base density. But as written, the ordinance does not guarantee how many of those units must be provided in exchange for that triple density. And more importantly, it does not guarantee how the attainable units will be allocated to different household income levels. We have much more need at the lower income levels than at the upper income levels. This ordinance does not answer some key questions like what percentage of the attainable units will be affordable to households earning below 60%? How many will be affordable to households earning less than 80%? If those answers are important to you, then I suggest that you take a pause before approving this ordinance today. And this ordinance fails to guarantee how many, if any, of the attainable units will be big enough to accommodate a family. This is not a hypothetical problem. A project is going in front of the planning board in October. It's got 223 market rate units. The market rate units have a variety of sizes and bedroom counts. The project also has 33 affordable units. All of them are the smallest style one-bedroom units in the entire project. If you think that isn't right, then you should pause from approving this ordinance today, because that's what we have today in a zoning code from a planning department that passed that code. So today you have a choice. You can either approve this comp plan amendment, and approval will only guarantee that more market rate units will be built. Approval will not guarantee how many or what kind of attainable units will be built, and they will not guarantee who they will be affordable to. The supermajority requirement to amend the comp plan gives you a superpower. Each one of you as a commissioner gets a superpower. You get the guarantee, and you could get the guarantees you need by postponing the vote until after real details for a real solution are included in this ordinance. But your power vanishes if you vote to wait for the details in a future zoning text amendment. It vanishes because zoning text
I'm gonna stop his input because I know we're running short on time,
No
but I
worries.
think we get the gist of it.
Yep.
And I'm just gonna, going back to what are we talking about? Well, with affordable housing, first of all, Ron makes the point again that you're giving the wealth transfer density increases, right? You're
Yep.
saying to an owner that can't build any residential, here, build 25 units of residential without a requirement for affordable housing. You're kind of staging it. So beyond that, they need to build affordable housing. A lot of them will opt out. I don't know. It's tiresome to see the same song with a different arrangement each
Well,
time.
I
It's
think
like-
you can't help but think about when Mr. Robinson was speaking, Mr. Merrill is sitting there next to him, just so people, know. And, people came out at that meeting and spoke in support of this, but the vast majority of residents came out and spoke against it. And
And something, someone pointed out, and maybe it was you, Rob, that residents were saying they live in the city, or they were even asked, do you live in the city? But the lobbying community, many of them don't, right?
that's
They're
right.
there to represent business interests who don't want to be told what to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's just, funny that so many of us, the residents, and a lot of us have actually been here for before the bridge, and so yeah, a little disingenuous what she said, but my point is that I'm sorry, I just totally lost my train of thought there.
I think what was interesting too in Ron Collins' input, he said you're tripling the density. They actually quadrupled it.
That's where I was headed with this. Yeah.
Bill Merrill at
That's
the
correct.
very end of the meeting. He's an attorney for developers. He suggested to the commission quadrupling the density, which wasn't advertised, which wasn't, and they went ahead and did it.
Right.
So
thank you for picking me out there.
And the thing about it, like in terms of all the public input, when these people ran, they all say, oh, I want to listen to you, and we're going to make sure you have your say. So during a pandemic, there weren't public meetings. And then when they realized the supermajority vote to make changes to the comp plan wasn't going to go away, right? Then they fast-tracked this thing.
Right.
Which is pretty shocking. So I've got one more. This is John Thaxton. And
I forgot about him. That's right.
yeah, John Thaxton gave input. Former county commissioner. He is with the Gulf Coast Community Foundation. He works on affordable housing with them. And he's, very well known, very effective guy. And so I would like to, let's see, make sure I get this right. Okay, here's John Thaxton. Let's listen to his input to the city commission.
Mr. Thaxton, the floor is yours.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. Mr. Vice Mayor, members of the Commission, Legal Counsel, I'm here appearing before you as a representative of Gulf Coast Community Foundation. My name is John Thaxton. Quite an unusual public hearing we have here today, where we have people in support of affordable housing almost unanimously, but we have people on one side or the other of adopting the ordinance. And I think the reason that this dichotomy exists is because it's unclear if this amendment will actually result in the creation of new affordable housing. I would suggest the only pathway to success would be to require a certain percentage of affordable housing units for any new market rate units approved above today's vested rights, also known as mandatory inclusionary zoning. I would offer that the up to 25 units per acre text found in the comp plan today is not a basis to establish a vesting for 25 units per acre. Numbers are essential. They're critical in order to have enforceable land development regulations. Up to 20 units per acre means any number between 0 and 20. What that number is solely at the discretion of this city commission based upon the specific site appropriateness that you and only you determine. That's why we have a two-phase planning process, the comp plan that looks at ranges and the zoning ordinance that looks at specifics. If the 20 units per acre were meant to establish a baseline density, the comp plan would read allowable densities development at densities of at least 20 units an acre or above. But it doesn't say that. It says up to, and that's a critical distinction. If 20 units is the maximum allowed in the comp plan, if it's used as a base, we will not get affordable housing. And it also assumes that this commission has no discretion and must approve the highest density implementing zone district. In this case, a property's vested or baseline residential density should be established by the maximum number of residential units allowed today by the current zoning. This approach assures the protection of reasonably backed financial expectations. An example, if a property's zoning today allows 10 residential units per acre, then the mandatory inclusionary zoning for affordable housing requirement would not impact the existing 10 units per acre. It would only affect the newly vested units above and beyond that. This maintains consistency with House Bill 7103 and Florida Statute Chapter 166, and it also provides the maximum assurance that affordable housing will result from this comprehensive plan amendment. Two quick comments in closing. The comp plan text needs to be clear that the 0 to 120% AMI definition of attainable housing only represents a portion of the affordable housing required. It's not going to all be approved at 120, that there will be lower AMIs included in the zoning text amendment. Slides 2 and 3 reference your Affordable Housing Advisory Committee recommendations. I serve on the joint committee with your city members. What you saw on the screen was last year's recommendations. This year's recommendations will be available in about 19 hours. I would suggest you might want to look at the most recent update from your advisory committee recommendations before making any final decisions on this critical comprehensive plan amendment that deals with the advisory committee's roles. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So,
Mr. Chairman.
yeah, he used a lot of,
Sorry.
right, I know,
Point that out.
I took it, yeah, they correct, anyway, he's the mayor, not the chairman.
I forget.
So, let's unpack what John Thaxton said. It's what we've been talking about this whole hour.
Yeah.
Existing rights to develop can't be required to include affordable housing.
Right.
But, and this is the definition of mandatory, meaning you have to do it, inclusionary, including affordable housing zoning. And you need to do it up front. Under the Burt Harris Act in Florida, you can't give density and then later say, oh, but it has to be affordable. It has to be done up front. So how do you actually make this stick? You make it clear in the comp plan that the newly vested So anything more than you have today, right?
Mhm.
As a landowner, anything that's new has to include a certain percentage of affordable housing. And he also talked about not just 120% of AMI, which is over $100,000 in income for a family. I'm sorry, nobody, even though I just know it's still hard to find a place to buy and stuff because this Sarasota is so expensive. You need to be looking at the people who make 40, 50,000, not just 120% of AMI. So John Thaxton is really clear that this ordinance is not good enough, and that the advisory committee, the joint committee between the
Mhm.
city's advisory board and the other one he serves on, their recommendations were available Tuesday, the day
Yep.
after. And they were going to include this, It's just stunning to see how this was not followed,
Well,
how
I
it
mean,
was ignored.
they got a timeline to meet. They've got a
Mhm.
deadline. I mean, this
Yeah.
speaks again to the the rushed tactics being
Mhm.
employed here by the city staff on behalf of the developers. And
Yeah.
look, I mean, Christine Robinson really said it right at the top of her speech. These folks don't actually believe in affordable housing. They believe in a shortage of housing.
Yeah.
So, which means that they just think they need to build more. They don't need to
Require
build
anything.
more for
Yeah.
something in particular,
Yeah.
and so again, it
And
speaks
that,
to the intent of all of this, behind all of this. This is not about creating housing for people that make $50,000 a year. It's just
yeah,
not.
it's not. And on that note, our time is coming to a close. Everybody,
Talk
you've
about
been
this for a while.
listening,
Thank you.
I know, to the detail on WSLR 96.5 LPFM in Sarasota, Florida, and WBPV 100.1 LPFM in Bradenton, Florida. We've been talking about the City Commission's plan and problems with the lack of guarantee of affordable housing. Commissioners at sarasotafl.gov is the email address if you want to communicate with your city commissioners. And voters must register by Tuesday, October 11th to vote in the November 8th general election, which includes the race for U.S. Senate, Florida governor, state legislature, as well as county and city offices. Early voting begins October 24th and continues through November 6th. All requests for a vote by mail ballot must be received no later than 5 p.m. on October 29th to allow ample time for mailing and return. Guidelines for requesting vote by mail ballots and registration are available at sarasotavotes.gov and votemanatee.gov. Thank you all so much for listening.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you, Rob, for being with me. Make it a great day.